And so that is the kind of the umbrella of under evaluation.
Okay, and this one for the patching, milling, and resurfacing, that's for 2023?
That's for 2023, and actually it is on the agenda for next week. So again, under evaluation.
Got it. Okay.
Fire station number 11 is on the agenda for next week. So is the law enforcement electronic security system, transportation consulting services, and the senior center renovation project. Those four are all under evaluation at this particular time.
Now, I know the one that we had, the law enforcement electronic security system, was that the one that was on the agenda last time that
Yes,
we
ma'am.
that? Okay. So at this point, is it still under evaluation, or are we just awaiting a contract from them and for Attorney Coleman to look it over before they bring it to the BOC again?
Both.
Both. Okay. All right. So, but everything else we have not yet determined the. Okay.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. Any questions in regards to the what's under evaluation before we get to the upcoming? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Yeah, I had one question. So I want to clarify the board's, when it did come before the board last week regarding this, the law enforcement bid, we had conversations. So remind me, did the board vote no, or did the board table?
Board
tabled it.
Okay. All right, so the board did table it. And so with that, they're going to come back with more detail, basically. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, there was no contract attached to it, so that's why the board tabled it, because we were voting to award the contract, but there was no contract.
All right, I'll let it come back to the board. I got it. I'm clear. So it's going to be on this upcoming meeting next week.
I think that's the goal. If Attorney Coleman can get it squared away. So how do they rectify it? But it's to come back before the board.
No problem. We tabled it. No problem. I'll wait till it comes back. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I'm good.
Thank you. Director Amons, you can continue with our upcoming.
Oh, and we have the animal shelter renovations that is open. That is open, and we had a mandatory pre-bid meeting this past Monday. Had approximately 4 vendors to come out and view the property. So I'm looking forward to the bid closing the first week of July so we can get the animal shelter repaired.
Okay, sounds good. That's a major one that needed to be handled.
Yes, and then we have a list of upcoming, the ones that I'm ready to share. We have the annual courthouse pressure washing, the coroner facility, the E911 facility. Those two will be design build projects. We have the transit drivers RFP for Connect Douglas. That one is upcoming. Interesting enough, countywide natural gas. So I want to just stop and explain that one. Since I've been in Douglas, I have a particular vendor that calls all the time and indicated that they wanted to save money and wanted to look at our rates on 2 of our buildings, and just constant calling about gas on 2 of the buildings. And then I stopped and thought, wait a minute, we have gas at more than just 2 buildings. And so late last year, I did a lot of preliminary research as far as how many buildings, how many gas companies, what are our rates, are they variable, are they fixed? And there were no consistencies across the county as far as the buildings and the gas. Some buildings, we may not be able to change the gas provider depending on the location within a city limit, but since gas is deregulated and we can select the vendor that offers the best price, I put this up there as far as putting out an RFP so we can have synergy across the county regarding not only the provider that we have, but the amount of money that we're spending for gas. And it appeared just high level that a couple of the locations didn't have a fixed rate, it was variable. And just for more clarification, just variable in wintertime, gas prices increase. That means that our bills would increase as well. And so I wanted to throw that out there as an option to put out an RFP so we can control or at least have a fixed gas price across the county. And we have one vendor that's providing that service in those buildings where we can manage the gas, and we can select a vendor.
Understood. Are these the buildings that only the BOC is responsible for, like our Parks and Recs building, our, of course, the courthouse, and in regards to that, but not other facilities such, it wouldn't include the tax commissioner's office, would it?
That is something that we could discuss, and because the tax commissioner's office, we could include, but we may not, I think it's a decision that we'll make, but it's just identifying the buildings first, all of the buildings, and the ones that, that are not used 100% by an elected official or constitutional office.
And I think that's something we need to consider, right? Because that also goes into their budget, right? Chief of staff.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? I don't. Yeah, that's something that we probably definitely need to look at and do some further research into. I agree.
Yeah, because we're providing the funding for that, so if we could, of course, get a better deal, it behooves not only the taxpayer, but also our overall budget stance in trying to streamline it and get the best bang for our buck. So if we could, and then again, we have the new chairman, and I know he's looking to streamline some stuff. So this may be an area that you may want to talk to him about, just trying to get some things in line. So if this could be a win for us, countywide natural gas, and we could come up with better pricing for all of the buildings, I think that would be a win. Okay, any questions regarding this one?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, you have a floor.
Yeah, I'm listening to the conversation, and I'm like, where did this come from? And I'm trying to reflect on the boards. I know we've looked at lighting, we looked at plumbing, we looked at HVAC, we looked at various I'm putting them in the utility bucket, so over in that section. So this would fit over there. But to your point, typically we try to look at the whole system versus one-offs. But this is new. Like, oh yeah, gas. We do gas. So I guess my question is, so what I'm hearing is that there's an RFP that's pending for these two, I guess, buildings or 3 buildings, but should we pause on it? And so, I guess I'm listening to the chief of staff, I'm listening to you, Madam Vice Chair, like, okay, so let's back up for a minute and let's look at the whole thing. You know how we're like all 33 buildings that we own, and what subset of that should be. But again, I'm sure you guys have worked through that. But my first reaction and listen is, okay, so makes sense, but are we approaching it right? And this is new to me. I hadn't heard anything about this, so I'll follow your lead. It was just my comment, like, okay, let's make sure we do this right holistically. Now, if you look at all 33, and this is the ones that's been isolated, the ones that need, okay, I get it. But again, I think there's other conversations need to be done with the board. So I yield, that's all. I just want to get that comment. I'll follow your lead.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. So, Ms. Annis, to that point, is it all of the buildings that the BOC is responsible for, or is it just certain ones, main ones?
No. So in my thought of trying to just strategize, I would like to look at all of the buildings, but the final decision will come down to like county administration. Again, it was something that I hadn't thought about until the rep kept calling about wanting to look at 1 or 2 buildings. And I said, well, wait a minute, we have more than just 1 or 2 buildings. So where can we save across the county, and taking a strategic look from a synergy perspective? And so it will yield further conversation as far as which buildings to include in an RFP. But I did want to bring that to the committee's attention, that this is something that we can kind of standardize as gas in those buildings where it's deregulated, so we can fix the price and not have, we could be paying more, we could not be paying more in some locations. But when I see $1 or something, per therm, I'm like, wait a minute, that's kind of, that's kind of high, even in recent months. We need, where's the pricing? Is someone, was it fixed at one time and then it went to a variable rate? Since we don't really have that history, what can we do, right? What can we do going forward? So I've researched and other entities put out RFPs for gas, natural gas, just to kind of, just try to have a baseline from a spend perspective in savings.
Got you. So I'm going to let you finish this, and then afterwards I have a question for you to do that statement.
Okay. Then last we have federal.
Wait, don't leave that one though. Now, right here.
Yes.
All right. All right. So to your point, so this line item here, is this a pitch from a vendor, or is this an RFP that is broad? Those are two different topics.
Right.
The vendor comes to us and says, "Hey, I got an idea, and I'm going to, pitch the procurement officer," and that's being advocated forward based on that vendor, a pre-existing relationship. Versus, did we go out? Are we going out to everybody, or an open bid? And again, back to the whole system. So, is this something that somebody's trying to make a proposal? Is this more of a proposal for something to be considered for these 2 or 3 buildings, which is fine if that's the will. Or is it more of a could we do it that way? But should we step back and look at the whole system? Because again, I go back to, but again, we've always looked at things from a systemic perspective. And so that's all. Again, I'm going to yield. I'm just like, I don't think there's action that can be taken. And we're putting time to something. Maybe just step back for a second and look at it all. I mean, I get it. I'm with it. Like the plumbing, like the lighting, like the HVAC. I get it. But this just to your point, like, this is something there needs to be some education to the board about this. Just like we went through everything with Amoresco regarding the plumbing and stuff. Like, okay, the board was educated on what this means. Again, did you provide this vendor with all of our natural gas for these 2 buildings, or was the whole systems like what James did for the plumbing and the electrical that we changed? So I'm just asking, my questions around approach, not the what, but it's how we're going about doing this. So that's all. So, Madam Vice Chair, again, I'll yield to how you want to take this forward, but it prompted. And so I just want to make sure if we put the time and the energy in something, let's make it count. I yield.
Thank you. So since you went there, I'll go ahead with my question. So historical data, of course, is something that we do need, right? Because that helps us to kind of see where we were, where we are today, and where we're probably headed in terms of spend costs, right? Yes. So the spend across certain areas when it comes to the items that Commissioner Robinson just stated, and now with gas, I thought those were supposed to be looked at through PBG, which is something that the Board of Commissioners put forth in 2019 or 2020, for them to come in and find all of the areas of which we've been spending and see if they can negotiate for us. So, and they would be the ones who would do that, as opposed to you, because that does take manpower. That takes manpower and hours that you probably don't have. So we do have PVG. I think that was Sam Data. We can ask to reach back out to them and see where they are with that. I know they saved us some money on, I think it was cell phone bills. They were supposed to come back and look at other categories, but we just wanted to start with cell phones just to see how they do things and how, and if it was a benefit to the county. So, so PVG, because I know gas is one of those that they can take a look at for us. I think it was medical insurance, gas, utilities as a whole.
Okay, but I did want to, Commissioner Robinson, you mentioned, was this one vendor or a proposal? It was not. It is an existing vendor, and they have the service at the particular building, and they wanted to, which I found, it just, Spidey senses came. If you're a current vendor, then why do you want to see our utility bills and our usage? Because you are a current vendor, and so that vendor became a little persistent in calling, and so that's what made me pause to say, you're calling about building that you already are a vendor for. If you can save me money, then just change my firm rate. That was my position. We're not going to go through, let me see all of your past bills. And because they kept calling, and when I say kept, I mean, as busy as we all are, if I remember you calling me 2, 3, 4 times, then that means you called a lot in a short period of time, then wait a minute. Obviously, we have something here, something I had never thought about in my previous roles. You're calling about 2 buildings that you are a current vendor for. I have a lot more. So who made the decision to go with that particular vendor? These are questions that I ask myself. Are we in a contract? What are our rates? Where are the other buildings? And then doing research, I noticed that other entities put out bids for natural gas to try to, level set and open up the competition. I think during that time, another vendor reached out. If you go to, because it's deregulated, if you go to the Georgia PSC, I mean, there are several companies that provide gas service. They are resellers for Georgia Natural Gas. So there is competition to be had. So it was just more of okay, well, if we're that important for this building and that one, what about the other ones? And maybe that vendor also wasn't aware of the other buildings and the other addresses that we own, but we have that knowledge here. And so we did do some preliminary work and trying to pull down utility bills, do some analysis, and created, like you said, a manual spreadsheet. Look at the bills on this particular month, point in time. What was the firm rate? What was the bill? And what was the company? And so for what we could dig up, it was just, it wasn't consistent across the county. And then trying to go back and say, okay, well, which ones can we switch? Meaning, in some areas, you may only be required to have a certain gas company because it could be, in a particular, let's say a city or municipality, but you couldn't switch. So that does require further research. And then this time, and so I put it in the back burner, something I thought about probably 6 months ago. And now with further discussion, probably should have brought it up then because gas prices are lower now in the summertime. And so you get the best rates in the summertime. And so that is how I saw the need for this RFP to be developed, just through simple conversation with a vendor. And sometimes that happens. When they ask a question, do you need or are you aware? And you stop and you think, well, wait a minute, I might, but I'm going to open it up for competition.
Sounds good. Continue on.
Right. The next one is under federal funds that I don't have a lot of detail, but that is one from the Department of Transportation. And Fire EMS needs a new ambulance, and the transfer station is for the landfill. So those are kind of really needed. I have a couple of more I could list, but those are the ones that are really needed. And those are upcoming RFPs or solicitations.
Okay. Any questions regarding the rest of those?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
All right, so we back up. So the corner facility and then 911 facility, your comment was that these are design build. I know at least one of them I'm more familiar with is in space planning. So the RFPs that you're speaking to are going to be what for the architect, the actual construction, or both?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna let that go. That's fine. All right. The second question was regarding transit driver. What is that?
That is for Connect Douglas and a new company to the drivers to drive the buses.
All right. So
third party driver. I think Ron's the official name was maybe third party drivers. I have the draft RFP.
All right. So we're gonna put that out there now. This is a conversation we've had within the transportation committee. I know we're going through this transit study on both routes and everything, and so but I wasn't sure that we were actually. While I support this and have expressed that perhaps personally I question the true value that we're getting out of our existing provider, I didn't know a decision was made to actually put this out there as far as an RFP. The chief of staff, administrator, are y'all? I mean, I get Ron, but I'm like, okay, that's big. And that's something that, okay, board, y'all ready to shift this like this? It's a 3-year pilot, and the whole point of the transit study was, okay, but what was the results? What was the outcome? What was the performance? Because the intelligence out of that study regarding their performance will help drive the RFP. What was the dissatisfaction operationally or through customer satisfaction? So I think this may be premature. I get the intent, but you want data to drive things. The whole point, like now we have a real experience, but the consultants that we're paying $625 have not finished their assignment. So what is driving the RFP? I get we can take it in the abstract, and I get we can take the original one that we didn't know what we were doing because we're brand new. I got it. But there's probably, again, I'm back to approach. It's not what we're doing, but how we're doing. Like, okay, but it's like let's let that transit study and the outcome of that drive where we go from here. Out of that also talks about our routes and how can this system connect with other jurisdictions like Fulton or Cobb or more enhanced. So it's like, okay, so what do you put in this RFP? Is that going to map where I know preliminary, perhaps how this thing is about to evolve? I just want to make sure things are aligned and they're not being done in a vacuum of this broader. This is important to me. It's like, okay, come on, guys. I don't know about this one. This one I want to pause on because I want to have assurance that the intelligence that we're going to spend all this money to. I mean, this is actually the system. I mean, the very thing, the transit itself is this study will determine who should really be the provider for us. But if we're going to put it out there without in the absence of this data, it's like, okay, we missed it. Because there's some things that can make it more rich, like, okay, can you have the capacity to do this? Can you do this? Here's the expectation. Here's as far as how you make your as it relates to on time and all these things. So I'm like, ooh. Now I understand it may take time, but that study, if I recall, won't really be done until this fall. And so I know we can probably anticipate the end, but I just don't know about this one. And so, I mean, this RFP that we're saying we're going to bring this before the board, I mean, our transportation committee had not signed off on this as an action. And we were waiting on the study, like no action is being taken, no route changes, no nothing, basic stuff. I mean, replace the light bulbs, the tires, yes, please. The bus stops that may have been knocked down or the bus signs been knocked down. You got to fix all the general, as I call it, maintenance. But this is a structural change. And this study is supposed to help determine what we're really looking for. So I'm going to yield on that one. Then, Vice Chair, any thoughts on what I just said?
Yeah, and I would kind of defer to Chief of Staff Stuart Stanley because she probably could give us a little bit more information, but I do understand where you're coming from. If we haven't finished the study, then how will we know what really needs to go into the RFP? I guess in terms of routes, additional buses that may be needed. How are we adding more districts or more points of interest along the way? Do we need to do an MOU with Fulton and Cobb and Paulding and Carroll, right? So we are in the stages of getting the information. So I do see your point, but maybe there was something else that you and I are not aware of as commissioners that staff may know.
So may I speak?
Yes, you have the floor.
So what I'll need to do is I'll need to confer with Ron Roberts, and I can give him a call right now if you guys want me to kind of get some more information. He did bring forth the RFP, as you know, and you guys we put it out there. But I can speak with him and maybe get a better understanding as to why this was done prior to the transit study being done. Commissioner Robinson, you are correct. It will be done by the fall. Citizens still can give their input through the end of this month. So I can reach out to him and see if I can find out some information, if that's okay.
Am I sure?
Yes.
Yeah, but to that point, yeah, I know what the intentions were. It's just about timing. In other words, like, I mean, again, I acknowledge the fact that, okay, let's make sure we got the right provider. Don't forget on demand. So there's a whole list. Our transit is broader than just, look, 9 buses, 15 buses rolling around these 4 routes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, now if we're going to reset this thing, again, there's different needs now. They're doing a needs analysis. The current routes may need to be shaped, may need to be extended, may need to be put over to other jurisdictions. And then we got the whole West. That's a different model. So you can put an RFP out. It's just not necessarily about buses. It's like transit. It should be a transit RFP. Like, okay, so I'm just using MARTA, for example. Can you do multiple modes? And if you only can do just buses, fine. But then we've got another need for these other modes of transportation. So, yeah, can you find, I don't want to derail the meeting, Madam Vice Chair. I just, and thank you, Chief of Staff to go, yeah, please find out for us. I mean, I don't necessarily need to take any action, but yeah, we are aware of this, but it was about, did we say go now? We know what the intent was, but they need to be aligned. I mean, why are you gonna put the RFP out before you get the intelligence? So, I yield.
And Commissioner, the list of the upcoming, we didn't, just for all of them, we don't have a date yet for posting.
Right, so this is just upcoming. This is
just upcoming. But you bring up a very good point, which will probably lead to just one agenda item I just wanted to announce, later on, as far as the topics, and when we get to that on the agenda. But you brought up a good point, and something I just thought about is addressing the concern. Just could be highlighting some concerns, not concerns, but just solutions, right? Moving forward when it comes to RFPs.
Thank you. Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I have Director Roberts on the phone, and he has an explanation as to why the RFP is being is out prior to the transit master plan. Would you like for me to put him on?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Ron, hold on one second. Okay, can you hear?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the RFP is being issued because we are in the 5th year of the contract with Transitions. Also, the RFP is being issued. We've included verbiage of what we have existing, but we've also left it open-ended in what we put in there, in the sense that we didn't would do any specific new changes or anything. We're just looking for vendors that can supply this service. So I hope that answers the question. But yeah, we haven't changed anything. My understanding in reading through the FTA guidelines is you can't really put an RFP out with the anticipation of future changes. You have to put it out based on what you have on the street. So that's what we're doing. We have 4 fixed routes. We're looking for someone that can do 4 fixed routes and move forward with that. But we also left verbiage in the RFP that we would make changes or alterations as needed, and we can discuss that at a future date. But it's important for us to get that RFP out as soon as possible, because it's going to take some time, 1, to get it out on the street, 2, to start getting responses. And the other thing that's really, really critical and important is the changeover period. So the existing contract with Transitions goes through May 1st. So we would want somebody, approved and ready to go first of the year, and then we would have some months to be able to transition the software information from QRide, Passio Go, and that stuff into the possibly newly selected vendor for the service.
Yes. Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
All right, so Director Robinson, all right, so yes, we've had these conversations within transportation. So I'm talking strictly alignment. And I get the 5 year, we're at the end of 5 years, which is a board policy. Correct me, is that a federal policy that we got to put it out? Or is that just the board that every 5 years, or at least at the 5th year, we're going to put something out? Let's start with that question.
No, it's not an FTA policy, sir. I mean,
you're good.
We just
mentioned it. It's not requirement. So to the committee, listen. So right, it's not a requirement. So if we needed to buy time month to month, whatever the case may be. So Director Roberts, I don't know if you heard the conversation, but my point is, I get the routes as is, 4 routes. And I understand with the FTA, you cannot anticipate, but we're spending $625,000 basically to talk about broader transit, the whole need, and that should help drive it's not about 4 routes. We may go to 6. We may go to 7. And so if you're getting vendors who their capacity could only maybe be 4, but if we're up to 7, we may get a different set of people. I'm like, okay, it appears premature in the sense that, well, let's buy ourselves 6 months. I mean, I get the time frame. I understand that. But we want to get this right. Because, the process of changing routes and doing things, it's a process like, okay, guys, we don't want to do do-overs. Like, all right, if you're going to do it right, get the RFP right, let it be our future current state. That works. I mean, you're doing all this great work, and for that not to shape this RFP, and you're only putting something out for what we did 3 years ago, that doesn't help us. That doesn't position the board or the county or the citizens in a better place, because now we got a provider who's based it on yesteryear. And so it's one of those, like, it's about alignment, it's about timing. And so can you confirm for us, Director Roberts, I think the Chief of Staff did say, is it September or November when this study will be done? Can you help the committee, please?
November.
It is November, so it's in a year. So we've got about 4 or 5 months. I get timing, but do you see, respond to how the impacts, whether it's can this provider provide 6 routes? Can you connect to other municipalities, like we said, Cobb or Fulton, Paulding, Carroll? Can you also provide alternative routes, like on demand? So if you go out here with a transit provider, I don't know what that answer is. Can you have a dedicated route that's not just these fixed, but a more broader flex, just between parks and schools? There's some intelligence that may not be in this. I think it's material to sense, but for them to size this up, and all right, y'all gonna do an RFP based on today's or yesteryear's state of being, but it may cost us more. Y'all gonna go negotiate for something on 4 routes, when in essence it could be bigger, and it's like, okay, so that's a do-over, and we want to get the budgeting right. We want to make sure we count the costs right. So this, again, I'm only about timing. I get the merits of it. I'm down. I am. I stood a record in committee for this, but it's just about the timing and making sure that this RFP is shaped by this intelligence that we just spent 6 1/4 on to make sure that this is optimized. So, I mean, this is a great conversation, but it's just about timing. Thank you, Director Rollins. Madam Vice Chair, my comments are only about timing. And so, again, this RFP, like, that may be a little bit premature. And if what's driving this 5 year, well, that's on the board then. And we can make that decision whether or not, all right, guys, let's buy 6 months and then put it out then. So, yeah, I get the month to month, whatever our contract says, the month to month to keep this rolling. But it's just, I just don't know about this. I don't know if this is the most optimal way to do this right now. This is too big. It's too much of a structure.
If I may chime in,
yeah.
The RFP is going to find out the cost for the drivers, the basic cost to provide a service. The service we can then discuss. We want to change these routes. We want to change whatever. It's just getting basic costs from these providers. So it will be in apples and apples. I mean, we're not going out on the street and saying, hey, this is the system that we're designing. We don't know what that looks like yet. But we are going out saying, hey, we need a provider to provide these services. This is what we've historically done. This is what we've historically spent. And this is what we've got. And now we're just looking for apples and apples so we can do a comparison and experience. That's the other issue.
So should it be more of a consultant to assess this? And here's what, and I get you, but it's like, but if we're going to do 7 routes, why are we getting costs for drivers for 4 routes when we may go to 7? Not to say that we're going to do that, because the board has not determined that. But, or if more extended routes or cutover, so your cost is not going to be a comparison, because it's going to be based on 4 routes. And if you get to a certain price point or a certain operation, or then the cost may go up. Now, as opposed to being 15 buses, we really may need 25 buses. That's a different
right,
cost.
And that's what we're looking for, unit costs, and then we'll figure out the scope later.
So we're not being obligated. So this is an RFQ or an RFP?
RFP. RFQ.
But it's not obligating the board. In other words, it's just some intelligence that y'all need for later, just for some intelligence. But there's still the formal, once we come up to the current state, then we're like, okay, this is where we're going. So I'm saying, this sounds like you're using the RFP process to collect data about performance, well, that's a consultant. That's a consultant assignment versus like, okay, if y'all put this out there, these guys are going to be expecting one of them are going to get this bid. Y'all put out an RFP, an open bid. These guys are thinking they're going to provide it, but I'm like, but it's based on 4 routes. It's based on 4 routes.
Like I said, we can adjust the scope. That language is in there. I mean, we sat here and went over that RFP line by line, and I mean, everything's in there. So we have the flexibility. We just need to find out what other vendors can provide this service and how much it would cost.
So I have a suggestion, if I may. We could ask for tiered pricing in the proposal for a route perspective, or we could, and this is with the permission of, just Ron and the Transportation Committee, the study is complete. If we do put it out later on and the award date is close to the contract ending date with transition, and we extend their contract for 3 months as a ramp down period as we upload the new vendor. If that's going to provide us maybe more comprehensive ask of our vendors at that time, because the study will be complete. And yes, we know that our goal is always 5 years, but there are a few. There have been at least one incident I can think of that we've officially gone before the board and asked for a 1-year extension because we just didn't have an RFP, which that one should be on this list as well. Now that we're talking, and that would be the countywide auditors, which is going to go out in July or August.
No, duly noted. In addition to the SPOS as well. Do know we make extensions all the time as a board, if we choose to support our need. I get it. And sometimes the timing doesn't align. So I think we're all on the same page, especially Dr. Roberts. We're on point. I think there's some massaging that needs to be done. So I'm highly recommending you guys I'm not just talking. I want my comments to be included in what I just shared, to be included in that RFP. So Madam's Chief of Staff, Director of Procurement, Director Roberts, can y'all just make sure that these comments are considered? In other words, I get what the FDA says. Got it. So y'all better shape this in such a way that we don't break rank from, all right, well, you only can talk about, you're going to put this out there, it's those 4 routes. As long as that language allows, but see, I'm hearing a conflict because they're saying on one hand, saying you can't talk about the future, but what you anticipate. See, I'm listening. Can't see that, but I'm listening to your words. I'm like, okay, this ain't quite aligned yet. So I mean, again, one more time, let's not. I know what the intention is, but let's just be thoughtful about this one, because again, there's a lot that goes into this one. You guys know it. And so again, there's a broader interest in what this is and what is ultimately going to be done. And I just don't want us to be in a place of a do-over, or that we landed with some providers that really did we get the best that we could. If they would have known the sort of the value of perfect information. If I got a little bit more information, then I can come back with a better decision for you. But okay, I'll go with what you gave me. But then I really would love to have that, because then now I can come up with a more refined answer for you on the first time versus some do-over later. So that's I don't want to belabor this, but I'm very clear on what I'm saying. So, Madam Vice Chair, you're okay with my comments? And Madam Chief of Staff, can y'all ensure these comments are at least reflected, please? I'm gonna let y'all solve it. This is what y'all are here for. But I just want those comments to be acknowledged. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. Thank you, Chief of Staff Stuart Stanley, for getting Director Roberts on the phone. And maybe if you can, get Director Roberts to give myself and Commissioner Robinson offline just a call. So again, we get a little more clarity, but I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next, anything else that we missed off of that list, Director Ammons? Director Ammons, I see you typing, so you multitasking your list while we are on the call.
No, I added to the list.
I saw that.
Sorry. I added countywide auditor to the list, which will go out in probably August. We will post that after the audit is complete. So as we were talking, it jarred my memory that is definitely one that's needed as well. It's a countywide auditor, but I'm not typing anything else on that list.
Well, I was going to say it jogged my memory as you were speaking that there are some other ones that I don't see on the list that I wish we would.
Oh, well, we can add to them.
Yeah, one of those would be for health services.
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, that is one. Thank you for the reminder.
So we but again, we can. Again, if you talk to all of us, it's probably something that all of us, including Commissioner Robinson, would probably tell you that we've been utilizing these providers. So we just need to see again if we're getting the best bang for our buck, and proceed from there. Are there any other questions regarding what else is on the list? Okay, Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
I would be remiss if I don't see that SPOS 22 on that list. The reason I say that one more time. So we got a couple projects on there that's based on SPOS funding, like the transfer station, right? Like the corner building. Like, okay, so how you gonna get there? All right, so my point is I need the SPOS 2022 on there. Now I've got a meeting with the county administrator tomorrow to finalize this, but I need that on the list for now. Please put that on the list for the record. There's no way we can go down this path and not like, okay, guys, why are we playing with this? We taxing these people. And yet who's gonna run this? We talk about capacity, and we keep pretending like it's like the elephant in the room. I don't know what the issue is, but and I get state of affairs. Let it go. We're moving forward now. Douglas forward, and we need to get this in the air. I mean, I know that I just had a meeting with for the record with the chair and the sheriff. We got fleet cars. We got this, you got some things that are pending that we're looking at it in a vacuum. Like, okay, guys, y'all don't see that big old spin over here? Y'all not anticipating what it's going to take to go get that done? Like, get this program manager in here, get your underwriting in play so we can get this going. So I'd like to just put that on the list, please. I mean, I have an issue when staff doesn't acknowledge the voices of commissioners. I want SPOS 22 on the list, program manager. And the board will ultimately decide all. I get it, it's a process, but our voices are important. And I'm advocating for the fact that we just taxed it. We're taxing the people right now, but we have no intentions, evidently, of getting any work done with it. We're just stacking cash. I gotta say it for the record, like, gosh, y'all see how that looks for us? But the board, and I'm like, okay, y'all, how are y'all gonna do this? But we're saying we're gonna build this corner building, this transfer station. Yeah, those are needed and stuff. Yes, the 911 building, yes, we need to do this, but the funding is tied to the SPOS. It's tied to the SPOS. So how are you gonna enable that? All right, you get my point. Madam Vice Chair, I don't have to go long on that one, but that has to be on the list for upcoming, and sooner than later. We don't have to keep going through the board meetings. How many times have the board said it? It's more of an implementation. We've already acknowledged it. That's internal, but we'll clean that up soon. But I need that to be on the list because the board has already said it. So it should be by default. It's not a staff coming up to us. It's us declaring that needs to be on the list. Now it's up to you guys to implement the will of the board. And so I get the internal. I'm gonna let that go for right now for the greater good. But please put that on the list.
Yes, Commissioner Robinson. I added it to the list.
All right. Madam Vice Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next agenda item for discussion is under new business, and that's the P-card audit policy changes. And Ms. Ammons, I know we just put in place the company that will help us to audit the P-card charges, right? And we have, I think it's a 90-day suspension of all P-card charges. Mm-hmm. So if you could just kind of update us on where we are and what may be needed into the policy.
Okay, so on one side, we do have Oversight. That was a company that the board approved. We started the implementation process. We had a kickoff meeting last week, and we're going to meet weekly regarding the steps that are needed for implementation of the Oversight, tool for us to use and be able to audit P-card purchases through AI intelligence. And so on that team is myself, Rosalind Miller, Alex, and Elliot from IS. So the four of us are a part of the implementation team on behalf of Douglas County. We didn't get a chance to meet today, but starting next week, then I'll have a better timeline to provide the committee as far as full implementation of the oversight. That is on one side of the house. The other side is from the our internal perspective and updating policy. We're still drafting new policy. We have put out a couple of new forms internally to P card holders, but the goal is to have a full report, new policy, new forms, and new training at the end of the 100-day freeze period. And so what we would do then is part of the training, everyone will be required to come to training. We will have everyone re-sign forms, right, every year, just to have it, on an annual. I like to have it on an annual basis, but also acknowledgement of any policy and procedures at that particular time. So that is the goal.
Understood. So I heard a couple of things I want to ask you about. And so the oversight tool is using AI, and AI, as we know, usually takes what has been in the past and it learns from that to better prepare you for what's to come. So how far back, because we've only been doing this, has it been a year that we've been using the P card?
No, we're coming up on a year. I think the first P card charge was on June the 22nd. So yes, they are going to go back. They're going to look at historical data and bring that in. And so the purpose is every month they will, as they learn us and learn, what our rules and guidelines are, right? The policies and procedures, and then learn, let's say, the purchasing habit of a particular person. Just for a high level example, if one, let's say, director, several conferences, but they always charge the conference registration on their particular P card for all of their people. The first month, there may be a question of, is someone circumventing the system because I see the same charge 3 times or 4 or 5 when an individual on a single transaction limit is $1,500, but yet they have $3,000 charges and they look split. Then the answer is no, it is a registration for their particular department. And so as it learns, we may not have that question come up again, same company, same MCC code, same description. So that's when it just starts to build and starts to learn the habits of the spending. And then also, it may come up with recommendations as to maybe some codes that we can shut off. Like, no one has, I don't believe, did a cash advance, but maybe we turn that off, right? So it starts to mimic, not necessarily mimic, but just monitor behavior and the spend. And so it may take a while just to get it perfect. So there'll be a lot of questions of going back and forth as they learn Douglas County.
Okay, and so as I'll just for term's sake, I'll use as red flags are raised. You will decide whether those red flags need to be red, yellow, or green.
Correct. We will address that. We will bring it up to county administration ASAP, but it will be in the form of a monthly report. And that will be red flags and charges. I'll kind of use this example. We have, I think I used it before publicly, the case of gas, right? Gas not to be purchased on the P card. However, I do know that last year animal shelter needed gas over the weekend. Our fuel area was closed, so they had to use P card to get gas. I mean, that isn't acceptable, but that would have been a flag, right? That definitely would have been a flag. And so then we said, oh no, it may be a flag in 6 months if it happens again, but yet we would receive the notification that, wait a minute, this is off policy, this has happened. You may want to take a look. If there was a charge at 2 o'clock in the morning from a particular, you just ask the person, and it's simple, right? Oh, director or employee XYZ, this charge is at midnight. Why? Any explanation? And if it's, let's say, Jason, yes, we need an emergency management. I mean, some things wouldn't even have to go any further than us here. That's emergency management and a tornado came through. So that's self-explanatory.
Got you. And so then my other, that leads to the internal policy, right? So I know that certain individuals do get P cards for their departments, and they may give them to employees for gas, in that instance, or to purchase something. So the forms that you all are getting together, is that to help the director to be accountable as to who they're giving the P card to or those charges, like help us through that, right? Because what we don't want is for, we give it to Miss Amons and Miss Amons gives it to Monica and Denise and Quan and everybody has it, but it's under you. And so if there's something that's a red flag, now you got to hunt down, well, who did I give it to? Well, when was this? Well, so, those are some policies or forms that we need to put in place so that we have a better handle on who is doing what.
And that is correct. And we do have what's called a proxy form, and some people do have proxies. Their proxies are allowed just to log in on their behalf and to code their expenses.
Got it.
We did really move away from giving someone else a card because you have no insight into the person that is using a card. So I would encourage doing training that if you have an employee that needs to use your card live, it may be best to give that particular employee their own card so they are responsible. So we aren't tracking down, was this a valid charge? Was it not a valid charge? You can also have general cards for the department. The senior services have it. It just says senior services because of their employees, and so they have to sign in and out. And there's another card, I can't remember what group the lady is in. They sign it in, they sign it out. This is what I use it for. So if it doesn't happen a lot, then one or two, but they do have to sign a proxy form, and the proxies have to also sign a cardholder agreement form to say that they will be responsible for those charges. So we do have that in place as well. However, just with a lot of the changes, we're going to redo all the forms and make sure that they're all up to date. And actually, that was part of a conversation I had this morning with a colleague from another county because of just a lot of the forms, right? Well, what are you all doing, to avoid a missing form, a form, we just can't find, it's buried in email somewhere. And so they use a system similar to DocuSign, where they upload the forms, people sign it, so they're housed. And I said, great, because I was looking for some sort of something to help us to reduce the manual labor. But it would be nice to be able to shoot out one email with the link. Here's the form, you fill it in, you return it, and we always have it. And so we always have that transparency that anyone, from the BOC can always take a look at it. And so, again, that was a conversation I had on my ride in. Part of a conversation was, I need something to house the documents so we have them. And so that was a suggestion. So that's something else I would like to bring forth going, in the future.
Got you. And to me, sooner than later, especially as the clock is ticking with the 90 days, retraining people and letting them know how important these are, because this is regulated by the state.
Yes.
And so I don't think people really understand the, in terms of that, like what that then spells out for you if there is abuse. In which, we have 1,200 employees. If, 10% of that has cars, maybe only 1% of that will do something wrong, but we want those people to understand what the consequences are, who's being held accountable, and how we are going to, again, audit and have oversight. And it starts with leadership, right? So it starts with the BOC and our expectations. We pass it on to you guys, and then you guys pass it on to the directors and to the managers who will be utilizing these P cards, because they are a tool for us to use to get services and goods done for the county, which we are providing these things for. So.
And thank you. And one of the things I look at is we've already approved over 3,000 purchase orders this year. I mean, this is June. That means that my people have looked at 3,000 purchase orders, and finance has approved from a budget perspective 3,000 purchase orders. As include any changes or anything, I would hypothetically guess that 10% of those charges could have been put on a P card. So we know that the risk, but the benefits just outweigh that. And so it would, I would love to be able to move office supplies to a P card versus a PO, and then we can get them sooner, right? So sometimes it's just a transfer of funds, but it's also a quick way to deliver the goods or the services. If you just sit down, log into your account, charge it to your P card. It's approved, right? And there are ways, but I'm just saying you have the approval levels, and then you can probably get your goods, your Staples order, your Office Depot order in 2 days versus a week and a half. And so we can use them and utilize them even more.
Yeah, and again, it just goes back to education and training.
Yes.
This gives us I think, 2020 is hindsight, but this gives us a way to actually do that and implement that before we take it any further.
Yes.
Are there any questions in regards around the P card audit policy? Being none, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is in regards to, are there any miscellaneous items to come before the boards?
I just want to bring back one miscellaneous item, my next lunch and learn. We're going to set that for August, I believe around August 15th. So you're penciling in, not with pen yet, but I choose August because a lot of people vacation a lot of time in the summer, and so we want to make it so that most people can attend. But the topics will be RFP, requirements, and bid takes forward. And so the purpose is to step everyone through the RFP, RFQ, or ITB process. And there are a few things that I would like to introduce as well in today's conversation, leading me to another one, right? Another idea, because everyone has a job to do around the county, and everyone does their job well, but everyone also has their own timeline on their side of the house. And then when it comes to here to procurement, it is, I need it now. And so with a lot of it now, it just boggles kind of the funnel, right? To get things out of the door and to get a quality product out of the door. I think that's it as well. Luckily, I've been here over a year and a half. I haven't had any protests, right? But that doesn't mean that everything's been perfect, because there's some areas that just because of the bandwidth and the personnel, they're just taking a little longer. So as far as planning, I would like to do planning top down, and I have developed just a preview if anybody is watching, but there will be a form that the business units or the departments will have to fill out to come to procurement. You need to know if the scope is complete, if the scope is not complete. Has the department head approved it? And finance, we find that a lot of times we may do some work and finance hasn't approved it. Because really it's a process improvement on the bid, the items that you want. Have they been approved? Do we have money? But also, what is your proposed timeline? You have to do procurement. I'm thinking 30 days, right? Instead of, because when you drop it off and say, I need it, it's just not always good timing from the department perspective, right? And so that form will be part of the institution. So I want to kind of introduce that, hopefully as we move and as we grow, that now, okay, even for, let's say, since we talked about Ron, the drivers, right? Let's get this approved. Okay, and he came early, so I love that fact, right? He's like, oh, I really want to implement it in January, and that's a great example of how you can back into it, and it's June, right? Oh, perfect. Now the other part is, the question can be something we can discuss, but should the committees approve before it comes to procurement, right? The bigger ones, because we will have a lot of moving projects, and then we have a lot of moving timelines. So I kind of want to introduce that instead of just having this long list and kind of in the back of my mind, I know what you need, and then someone comes in at the last minute and says, oh, I need this, and this is urgent. And so I think it'll just help project manage all of the RFPs across the county. So that will be part of the RFP training, but also everyone really doesn't understand, or see where they fit in the process. It has to be posted. There's some things we have to do by law. What happens after the fact? Okay, we've been coming to the board. Some don't have a contract. Some do have a contract. And if we want to go to the board before contract, then that's going to take even longer, because we're going to have to negotiate that contract with the vendor. And then who is going to do that? So everything will not be my bid closed today. I need a contract in 7 days. It just doesn't always work that fast. And this is a department of one. So how do we level set as we, as I continue to advertise for, the job, I as far as, hiring, but just how do we all play in the sand together through this particular process, but also just giving you a high level view of what goes into the particular process. So that will be part of the Lunch and Learn in August. RFPs, why does it take so long?
Got you. I think that's a one that will be well received, hopefully across the board, and especially like Commissioner Robinson just stated. You know, you put the SPLOST 2022 on there, you're gonna have RFPs and out the wazoo, right? On top of just the daily ones, you know, that come in, and so you have to be able to manage that, and you have to be able to work simultaneously to get those SPLOST projects out the door, as well as the day-to-day projects for departments. So really crucial. That reminds me, how are you doing with the hiring? I heard they did give you extra help. Jabril was supposed to be helping you. Probably training him.
Yes, training him, and I did post 2 positions earlier, and so I reposted them.
Okay.
But I do have a new person starting in 2 weeks as the preliminary Carmen Tab. Left over to the accountability board, but I have backfilled her position.
Okay.
And that young lady will start Monday the 26th, I believe is the date. And so I'm looking forward to that. And so I have a total of 3 positions left to fill. And we're going to be interviewing for one. I believe I have 1 candidate at least next week. I'm going to interview for. We have expanded where we advertise particular jobs, and so I'm excited. I really am excited about building out the team, and it's something that I should have done a long time ago. But I've been in the weeds doing all of the bids, and so to my own detriment. But I'm changing that, and I hope to be fully staffed with this today.
Good to hear. So I do note that we have another commissioner on the line. Didn't know if he needed to ask you anything while we're in committee, but just wanted to welcome you to Alpharetta. To the Parks and Oversight Committee.
No, thank you. I've just been listening.
Okay.
As I was working, you know, I thought I'd listen in, but no, everything that you're saying is great. I love what I'm hearing, especially during the new audit process and everything that we're going to have in place. But no, I was just dropping in an ear to listen.
No problem. Glad to have you. Yeah, welcome. And I see that we also have our SPLOST Communications Director, Mr. David Good. I see you on the line. Is there anything that you wanted to update us on, or were you just listening in too?
I'm just listening in as well.
Okay, wonderful. All righty. Well, are there any other items to come before the POC? If none, the meeting stands adjourned at 2:07. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.